The lawyer's words didn't even register at first. I was standing in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the steam spiraling up from my untouched mug of tea. "I'm afraid," he repeated slowly, "your grandmother left everything to Hannah." My hand tightened so suddenly that the ceramic cup wobbled on the counter. "Everything?" I actually laughed, a dry, broken sound, because it had to be some kind of mistake. Hannah was my cousin, not Grandma's only family. And Hannah, she hadn't been close to Grandma until recently. She must have meant to split it. She always said. My voice cracked, and I could hear paper shuffling on the other end. He read from the document like it was cold fact. House, savings, personal possessions, all hers. I gripped the edge of the counter, forcing air into my lungs. My grandmother practically raised me after Mom died in that car accident. She made me breakfast every morning, came to school plays, taught me to braid my own hair. We had years of private jokes, tearful Christmas Eves by the fire, even promises about what would happen one day when she was gone. She swore her estate would be shared equally between me and Hannah. And now, my name wasn't even mentioned. The craziest part? No one had told me the will had been changed. No one. Not Grandma, and certainly not Hannah. I swallowed hard, the taste of metal in my mouth. How could this happen without me knowing? And maybe the question that scared me most. Why now? I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until the tea sloshed and burned my skin. But the burn was nothing compared to the betrayal beginning to claw its way through my chest. Because if Hannah got everything, that meant she'd been planning this for a long time. And the real question I couldn't push away was, what did she do to convince Grandma to cut me out? Shall I write the next chapter? I couldn't just accept it. Not after everything Grandma and I had been through. The lawyer's words kept replaying in my head, but so did her voice from years ago, telling me, "Don't worry, sweetheart. You and Hannah will share it all equally one day. Family should be fair." That sentence had been a safety net for me. I'd built pieces of my life on it. After my mom's death, it wasn't my dad who held me together. He disappeared into his own grief and rarely called. Grandma was my real parent. She was the reason I stayed in our small town after college, instead of taking an editing job in Boston. She needed someone close, and I wanted to be there when her arthritis acted up, when the stairs felt like a mountain to her, when she needed her prescriptions filled. I told myself I didn't mind putting my life on hold. I watched friends build careers overseas while I worked part-time locally, making just enough to cover rent and groceries. But in my head, there was always that cushion. The house we both loved, her modest savings, her promise that her will would make things equal. She even said it again 2 years ago over dinner, with her hand resting over mine. But now Hannah had it all. My cousin, who had spent most of her 20s living in another state, only popping in for holidays, or when she needed a loan from Grandma, was suddenly the sole heir. That didn't make sense, unless something had changed recently, unless Hannah had made it change. The last time I saw them together, Grandma seemed tired but happy, and Hannah was right there at her side, steering her conversations, laughing just a fraction too loudly. At the time, I thought she was just trying to be involved. Now, looking back, I wasn't so sure. I sat there that night, staring at the wall, and one thought kept creeping in like a shadow. If Hannah could convince Grandma to rewrite decades of promises, then maybe this didn't happen suddenly. Maybe I'd been losing my place in Grandma's life long before the will was signed. And when I started to remember all the small moments I'd brushed off, my stomach twisted. Because the truth was, the warning signs had been there. Shall I write the next chapter? It started so subtly that I didn't even notice at first. Little things. Things I told myself didn't matter. About 2 years ago, I'd show up at Grandma's on Tuesday evenings like I always did, casserole in hand, only to find the lights off and the door locked. Later, Hannah would text me, "Oh, didn't you hear? I took her to a new restaurant tonight. She needed to get out." No invite, no heads up. Then there were the doctor's appointments. For years, I'd been the one to drive Grandma, making sure she understood what the specialist said. Suddenly, Hannah was the one driving her, because her schedule was more flexible. I found out about important medication changes after they happened, usually because I'd noticed a new orange bottle on the counter. I remember one Saturday afternoon distinctly. I walked in and saw Hannah in the living room, tossing old photo albums into a trash bag. "They're falling apart," she said, without looking up. My heart sank. Those weren't just pictures. They were fragments of our family history. When I protested, she smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, come on, Karen. They're just clutter. Grandma doesn't need all this old junk." Grandma sat quietly in her chair, not saying a word, as if she didn't want to choose sides. Back then, I told myself Hannah was just efficient, organized, maybe even helpful. But there was one moment I can't forget. A family dinner last spring. Just the four of us. Me, Grandma, Hannah, and Uncle Ray. I brought a cake from the bakery Grandma loved. Hannah looked at it, then at Grandma, and said, "Don't eat that, it's too sweet for you. I'll fix you a plate later." And Grandma put down her fork without a word. I should have seen it for what it was. One person slowly taking control, deciding who saw Grandma, what she ate, what she kept, what she was told. I just didn't want to admit that someone in our own bloodline could be capable of that kind of quiet takeover. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized these moments weren't accidents. And when I tried to talk about it, I learned the hard way how easily Hannah could twist the truth. Shall I write the next chapter? The first time I tried to bring it up, it backfired so badly, I wished I'd kept my mouth shut. One Sunday after lunch, Grandma had gone for a nap, and I found Hannah in the kitchen rinsing dishes. I leaned against the counter and said, as casually as I could, "Hey, I've noticed you've been organizing a lot of things lately. I feel a little left out. I worry I'm missing important updates about Grandma's health and plans." She didn't even pause. She let out this sharp little laugh, flicked water off her hands, and said, "God, Karen, you're always so paranoid. You act like I'm plotting something. I'm literally just helping an 87-year-old woman keep her calendar straight." My cheeks burned. "I'm not saying you're plotting." "Really? Because that's how it sounds." She tilted her head, smirking. "You think she owes you every little detail. She's allowed to have a life without you shadowing her every step. I thought maybe if I went to Grandma directly, I could explain my concerns without the sarcasm. But when I brought it up a week later, in soft, careful words, she sighed heavily and said, "Karen, you're overthinking things again. Hannah's been a big help. Don't be so sensitive." That stung. Not just because she'd brushed me off, but because she sounded almost rehearsed, like she'd already been primed for that conversation. After that, the pattern only got worse. Whenever I asked simple questions, "How was the doctor visit? Did you ever hear back from the lawyer about the roof repair?" either Hannah would answer for Grandma, or they'd exchange a quick glance before giving me some vague non-answer. I knew I wasn't imagining it, but each time I tried to push back, I was painted as dramatic, controlling, even jealous. And then came the first time Hannah undermined me in front of the whole family. Something I'll never forget, because it shifted the way everyone else saw us. Shall I write the next chapter? It was Grandma's 88th birthday, and the dining room was glowing with the warm light from the chandelier she'd had since I was a kid. The table was full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors who'd known her for decades. For a few hours, it felt almost normal. I was standing by the cake, balancing paper plates in one hand, when I heard the clinking of a spoon against a glass. Hannah was on her feet. She smiled wide, all teeth, and cleared her throat. "I just want to say," she began, her voice carrying easily over the chatter, "how grateful I am that Grandma has allowed me to be the one to take care of everything for her these past years. From her health to her finances to making sure her days are full, it's been my honor." A ripple of approving murmurs went around the table. I froze. Everything? She made it sound like I had nothing to do with Grandma's life at all. Like the late-night phone calls, the grocery runs in the snow, the times I sat in waiting rooms for hours. None of it happened. I caught Grandma's eye, looking for something in her face. Surprise, correction, anything. Instead, she gave a small, proud smile and nodded. I felt heat rising from my collarbone. I opened my mouth to speak, to say, "Actually, we've both been here for her." But my Uncle Ray shot me a glance. That subtle shake of the head, warning me not to make a scene. My hands trembled as I cut the cake. The worst part wasn't the applause Hannah got at the end of her little speech. It was the way people started glancing at me after, like I was just a guest at my own grandmother's birthday. That night, lying awake, I realized the narrative Hannah had been subtly crafting wasn't just for Grandma. It was for everyone. She was building a public image of herself as the sole caretaker, and erasing me in the process. If she could pull it off in front of a room full of people, what had she been able to do in a lawyer's office behind closed doors? I decided then I had to act before it was too late, but I had no idea that my first attempt to fix things would make the situation explode. Shall I write the next chapter? The week after the birthday party, I waited until I knew Hannah would be at work before heading to Grandma's. My heart was hammering. Not because I planned anything confrontational, but because I wanted to finally have an honest, private conversation with her without Hannah hovering in the background. We sat in the living room, sunlight flickering through the lace curtains. I poured her tea and eased into it, asking about her health, the new knitting project she had started. Then I said carefully, "Grandma, remember a while ago you told me you wanted things to be fair between Hannah and me when, one day?" Her eyes softened, but there was a flicker of hesitation. I pressed on. "I just think it might be wise to go over your will. Together. Make sure it still reflects what you want before anything happens." She set her tea down slowly. "Karen, that's not necessary. Everything is in order. But please," she said, firmer now, "don't worry about that." I should have let it go right there, but I didn't. I told her I'd recently learned how easy wills can be altered without other family members knowing, and how I wanted to make sure hers was secure. I suggested we call the lawyer together, just for peace of mind. She didn't answer. Her gaze had shifted to the window, like she couldn't wait for the subject to change. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a message in our big family group chat. All caps from Hannah. "Hannah, just heard from Grandma about Karen pressuring her to discuss money and inheritance. Absolutely disgusting behavior. She's 88 years old. Can you imagine?" Within minutes, little heart and shocked face emojis popped up from cousins and aunts. My stomach dropped as I saw my uncle type, "That's out of line, Karen." They made it sound like I was circling my grandmother like a vulture. And Grandma. She didn't chime in to defend me. Not once. If I'd had any doubts before about Hannah's hold on her, they evaporated that day. Something was deeply wrong here. But what I didn't know was that the proof, cold, undeniable proof, of how far Hannah had gone was already sitting in Grandma's phone. Shall I write the next chapter? It happened on a Tuesday afternoon when I dropped by to help Grandma figure out why her phone kept running out of storage. She handed it to me with a little sigh, muttering something about these new gadgets and how she missed her old landline. I settled into the worn armchair by the window, scrolling through her photo gallery to clear out duplicates. I was about halfway through when a thumbnail froze me. It wasn't something innocent like a blurry picture of her cat. It was Hannah, standing in front of a sleek glass building that I immediately recognized. Harper & Dell, attorneys at law. The gold lettering in the background was impossible to miss. Hannah was grinning in the photo, holding up a peace sign. Across the bottom of the screen was the caption she'd typed, "Secured the bag." My chest went cold. I checked the date. 6 months ago. That was around the time Grandma had seemed oddly quiet anytime I brought up long-term plans. I opened the text thread, my fingers trembling. The picture had been sent to a number named Marcy. Above it was a message. "Done and dusted. She won't even know until..." The sentence cut off, but I could fill in the rest all too easily. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I glanced at Grandma. She was asleep in her chair, head tilted gently to the side. Did she have any idea what that picture meant? I quickly sent the photo and text to my own phone, heart pounding, then deleted the forwarded record from her device. If Hannah ever searched her sent items, I didn't want her to know I'd seen it. Not yet. Because now I had evidence. Not just a suspicion, or a series of gut feelings, but physical proof that Hannah had gone to the lawyer without consulting anyone. That she'd celebrated afterwards, smug and unguarded. The question was, what could I do with it? I knew one thing. Before I confronted her, I needed to confirm exactly what changes had been made and when, which meant going straight to the source. But I had no idea that walking into that office would make me realize just how completely I'd already been cut out. Shall I write the next chapter? The receptionist at Harper & Dell gave me a polite but puzzled smile when I walked in the next morning. My palms were slick with sweat, the photo of Hannah still burning a hole in my mind. "I'd like to review my grandmother's will," I said, steadying my voice. "I'm a named beneficiary." Her fingers paused over the keyboard. "Your grandmother's name?" I gave it, along with my ID. She clicked and scrolled, her polite expression never wavering, until something in her eyes shifted, a tightening. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "You'll have to speak with your grandmother directly. We can't release any details to you. You're not listed as an authorized party on the file." My pulse thumped in my ears. That must be a mistake. I've been in this office with her before. I've seen the document with my own name on it. She looked almost apologetic. The most recent will was executed 6 months ago. She didn't say more, but that was enough. 6 months ago. The same date as Hannah's photo. I leaned against the counter, willing my hands not to shake. Who brought her in to make those changes? The receptionist hesitated, glancing toward the frosted glass door behind her. "I can't disclose that. You're telling me I've been completely removed from her will, and there's nothing I can..." "Ma'am," she interrupted softly, "I really can't discuss details without your grandmother's permission. I'm sorry." I walked out into the crisp air, my throat tight, and sat in my car for a long moment. My chest felt hollow. It wasn't just that Hannah had taken my place. It was the realization that this had been done methodically, with legal precision, while I was still buying groceries and shoveling Grandma's walkway like nothing had changed. If I was going to fight this, I couldn't afford another quiet conversation or a polite request. Hannah had played her move in secret. Now it was my turn, and I was done playing nice. I decided then and there to confront her directly, with the proof in hand, and I wanted to do it where Grandma could hear every word. Shall I write the next chapter? I picked my moment carefully. A Saturday afternoon, when Hannah often came by to organize Grandma's paperwork. I parked around the block so she wouldn't see my car, letting the cold air sting my face just to calm my nerves. Inside my coat pocket, My phone buzzed faintly. The screenshot of her gloating outside the lawyer's office, ready to be shown. When I walked into the living room, Hannah was exactly where I expected, cross-legged on the carpet, folders spread around her like a paper halo. Grandma sat in her recliner, knitting half-heartedly, glancing up at Hannah every so often as if waiting for instructions. Hannah looked up at me with that tight little smile she always wore now. "Oh, Karen, didn't know you were coming." "I bet you didn't," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I stepped forward and laid my phone on the coffee table between us, the image filling the screen. Hannah's smile faltered instantly. "What's this?" Grandma asked, her gaze moving between us. I kept my eyes on Hannah. "Why don't you tell her? About the day 6 months ago when you took her to the lawyer's office to change her will. And how you texted your friend right after, secured the bag." For a beat, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the old wall clock. Hannah's cheeks flushed, and she laughed. But it was brittle, shaky. "Oh my God, you're misinterpreting everything. That's just a joke. I was helping her handle documents, not—" "Stop," I cut in. "We both know what you did, and this," I tapped the phone, "is proof." Grandma's knitting needles dropped into her lap. "Hannah, is that true?" Hannah opened her mouth, closed it again, her usual confidence cracking. "It's complicated, Grandma. You weren't thinking clearly about protecting your assets, and—" The look on Grandma's face was one I'll never forget. Confusion first, then a flicker of doubt, and then something darker creeping in, like she realized she'd trusted one of us to protect her from the other, and maybe she'd picked wrong. I had forced the truth out into the air, but I didn't yet know whose side Grandma would take, or how the rest of the family would react when the news spread. Shall I write the next chapter? Word about the confrontation spread faster than I could have imagined. By Sunday morning, my phone was a battlefield of texts and missed calls. Aunt Lisa. "Karen, did you really ambush Hannah in front of your grandmother? What's wrong with you?" Uncle Ray. "She's the only one who's been helping, you know." Cousin Marcy. "What's this about a photo? Send it to me." At the same time, a different thread was forming. Cousins I barely spoke to were suddenly reaching out. Daniel. "If that's true about the will, that's disgusting. I'm with you." It felt like the whole family was splitting into two camps overnight. Those who saw Hannah as the selfless caretaker, and those who suspected I might be right about her motives. Grandma didn't call me. That silence was worse than anything. But 3 days later, a letter arrived from Harper and Dell. It was polite, clinical, confirming that the will had been updated, naming Hannah as sole beneficiary, and informing me I had the right to contest it in probate court within a set time frame. Part of me wavered. Taking this to court would drag everything into the open. Grandma's health wasn't great. The stress could make it worse. But if I stayed quiet, the truth would rot inside me forever. I met with my own lawyer the next day. She scanned the cell phone screenshot and raised her eyebrows. "This isn't just evidence of a change," she said. "It could be grounds for undue influence. 6 months ago, was your grandmother already showing signs of cognitive decline?" I thought about the repetition in her stories lately. The way she sometimes forgot she'd already asked me the same question 3 times in one afternoon. And then I thought about how Hannah had been there, alone with her, during those crucial months. "I want to challenge it," I said finally. My own voice surprised me, steady, free of hesitation. "Then we need statements, dates, anything you have showing a pattern of control," my lawyer replied. I left her office clutching a growing folder of papers. The clock was ticking. This was no longer just about inheritance. It was about setting the record straight before Hannah rewrote our family's entire history. Shall I write the next chapter? The first place I went was Grandma's house. But I didn't walk in unprepared. I brought a notepad and a voice recorder hidden in my coat pocket because I knew every word could matter later. Grandma was in her chair, a blanket over her knees, the TV murmuring some afternoon game show. Hannah wasn't there, which was exactly what I'd been waiting for. I sat beside her and asked gently, "Do you remember changing your will last year?" Her brow furrowed. "We talked about it, yes. Hannah said it would make things simpler." Did she explain what she meant by simpler? A small shrug. That I wouldn't have to divide things. That you're young and will have plenty of time to earn for yourself. The words hit me like ice water. Is that what you wanted? Or what Hannah wanted? Her eyes darted to the window. She's been helping me so much, Karen. It was like trying to get through fog. I could hear in her voice that she believed part of it, but also that she wasn't entirely certain anymore. I didn't push too hard. I needed her trust, not her fear. Before I left, I asked if I could look through some old boxes in the spare room. Most of it was dust and clutter, but in one folder I found a stack of receipts for lawyer visits, prescription pickups, and even home repairs, all signed for by Hannah. Many of them lined up perfectly with the months leading to the will change. This was the pattern my lawyer had talked about. A paper trail showing Hannah had been the gatekeeper between Grandma and the outside world. Walking back to my car, I felt the strange combination of grief and resolve. Grief for the bond I'd once had with my grandmother, and resolve that I wasn't going to let Hannah quietly erase me from her life story. It was time to file the contest formally. And once the papers were delivered, Hannah wouldn't just be dealing with whispered accusations. She'd be facing a legal fight she couldn't control from behind closed doors. Shall I write the next chapter?